Bufo Alvarius is often considered the most potent and intense psychedelic in the world. Many of those who have tried it often describe entering a state where they are nothing, yet they feel connected to everything. Some people even compare the experience to dying, but then coming back to life or this reality, completely reborn. What exactly is this psychedelic? Why did I feel drawn to try something many would consider drastic? And how did this change my life in the most unimaginable way? Well, to begin, if you want to know why I decided to try Bufo Alvarius, we need to go back to this Mike Tyson interview.
And so we go in there, I smoke the pipe, we sit down on the floor on a mattress and smoke it, and it hits me, boom, and I'm gone. I'm getting 1,000 years of information within 15 minutes. So you imagine how fast it's coming to me.
What happened?
Stop using drugs, stop drinking, stop in that. I didn't want to do that no more, so I did that. So I took another hit of the toad.
And after listening to him describe his experience, I knew that this was something I really wanted to try. I didn't really have a solid reason why. I didn't know why the urge felt so strong, but I trusted the feeling. And the next thing I knew, I was researching what it was about. Bufo Alvarius, also commonly referred to as a toad, is a species of toad that's found primarily in Mexico and parts of North America. This toad secretes a venom that contains 5-MeO-DMT, a strong psychedelic substance that's known to induce powerful hallucinogenic experiences that can last anywhere between 7 to 90 minutes. People are drawn to the toad because after just one experience, there are many people who report that it has drastically helped them change the way they perceive themselves and or their lives. It is some seriously powerful stuff. Typically, the way it works is this venom is secreted from the toad, and then it's crystallized and smoked in a very unique process. And it is when you smoke and inhale the fumes from this crystallized DMT that you break through or have an experience that's otherworldly. It is a very difficult thing to describe what this experience is like, but one common theme that many people describe after having experienced Bufo Alvarius is they feel this feeling of oneness, this connectedness to everything and everyone. And most people agree that they feel and perceive things differently after their experience. Although it is generally deemed safe and non-addictive, there are some serious side effects that have been reported, including psychological disturbances, nausea, increased heart rate, pressure on the chest, and increased anxiety after having the experience. So regardless of how mystical, beautiful, profound this experience is for some, and how it may seem, it is really important that anyone considering trying Bufo Alvarius does their due diligence and also does it in a safe and monitored environment. And it is also precisely because of these risks that many people are afraid to try it. So, why did I feel drawn to try Bufo Alvarius? Although I really felt like I was on the right path, I just felt that there was another step that needed to be taken on my healing journey, and I still felt that I was kind of stuck in some patterns that I was struggling to shake. At that point in my life, just before I tried Bufo Alvarius, I had started releasing these intense episodes of social anxiety that I had, and I started to feel that I was overcoming my depression and truly working on myself and discovering a version of myself that I didn't know existed. But it was really hard for me to shake these negative perpetuating thoughts that I was having some days incessantly, like even as much as I was doing the work, and even as much healing as I had done, I just felt that there was something further that I needed to do. And for some people, it's therapy. For some people, it's education. For some people, it's psychedelics. For some people, it's fill in the blank. And in that point in my life, for me, I felt called to try Bufo. So I did. I can still remember being at this retreat center and watching the facilitators light this really colorful pipe that contained the Bufo Alvarius crystals. And I was so scared, just not knowing what to expect, not knowing if inhaling this substance would either bring me into a realm that was so healing and so powerful that could possibly change my life forever, or would I get a panic attack and feel like I'm losing my mind and feel like I'm dying. Those are the thoughts that pass through my mind, at least, when I'm about to face something that is so unknown to me, and I know has had radical impacts on people. So finally it was my turn, and they asked me if I was ready, and they brought the pipe to my mouth and lit it. And I inhaled for as long as I could, and I fell back. And I remember for the first few seconds I resisted the experience. I was so afraid. And I kept telling myself, you're not dying. You're alive. And then I said, I am okay. I am okay. I am okay. And once I said it enough times, I finally broke through. And then suddenly, I was just in this place where there was an infinite amount of beautiful, bright colors that were swirling around me, changing shapes. And there were these beautiful, unique geometric shapes that were just dancing. And all I could feel was just like a pure loving essence and joy surrounding me. I felt like energy. I was experiencing energy, and I felt like energy. I didn't feel like I had a physical body anymore. And as I was just being, as I was just sitting, being, feeling this experience, a truth, a simple yet profound truth hit me. It hit me so hard. All I could do was laugh at it. I was laughing hard and loud, and I didn't care who heard. I didn't care what it sounded like. It was almost maniacal because it was absurd how profound and simple it was, and how much I just had not realized this truth before, even though at the same time I felt like it was an inherent truth that I knew all along, but I just never fully understood or absorbed. And I was just laughing at the insanity of it. Which brings me to the last question. How did Bufo Alvarius change my life in the most unimaginable way? It was when I realized this. I create all of my own problems. This experience is really tricky to explain, and I almost need to keep this simple rather than over-explaining and trying to make you, the viewer, understand what I experienced, because it's so complex and so abstract. So I'll do the best that I can. What I saw and felt and heard and just resonated with so deeply in that moment was that I truly create all of my problems in my life. And I understood how the mind works and what it was doing to me. It's like I suddenly understood that my mind, the way my mind was wired up until that point in my life, it was perceiving and then projecting my problems into my life. And it was almost as if my mind, or I saw my mind as a projector, right? And the film that I was giving it was all of this data, this information, but the way I was processing the information and then projecting it back out and creating my reality was not conducive to my happiness, my joy, my healing, my general mindset. And I realized that the way I was taking in information and then putting it back out was making me unhappy. So meaning that it wasn't what was happening around me. It wasn't my external environment that was making me so sad. It's not that people were constantly mistreating me, or bad things were constantly happening to me, or that I was misunderstood. It's that I perceived that I was a victim in so many scenarios in my life. I perceived that people didn't like me. I perceived that I was misunderstood. And because of that, I felt it constantly over and over again. And it was just this like feedback loop system that was keeping me in a constant state of misery and unhappiness, because I was letting my mind take control and steer the ship of my life, rather than me, rather than my soul, if you will, taking control of my life and steering the ship the way I truly want it to be steered. And as that realization was hitting me, it wasn't a foreign concept. It wasn't a foreign thing. It was like something I had already known. It's like I had known that I was creating my problems, but I didn't know how to stop it. And I was maybe even in denial that I could be creating these problems. And also, we have real things, like real tragedies that happen to us in our lives as we have this human experience. I mean, we see it all the time. We see war and unfair killings, and we see, people pass away in our lives way too early, and illnesses and disease. And so I was kind of fighting that, I'm like, well, what about those things? And even though those are tragic, and even though we're not meant to resist all the full range of human emotions that we experience in our lives, like we're allowed to feel sad. We're allowed to feel negative emotions. We're allowed to feel what it feels like to experience tragedy, but it's how we perceive these experiences and how we process them that determines whether they're going to haunt us for the rest of our lives and keep affecting us in the present and future or not. Our minds can be incredibly innovative with the way they interpret things, but our minds can also be drastically inaccurate. So although we can agree that no matter what, hard things will happen to us, what if the misery that we experience sometimes from these hardships, the sadness, the tragedy, the prolonged feeling of hopelessness, or whatever that negative feeling is, what if that is based on our interpretation of what is happening to us and not the actual event itself? What if even when we're faced with hardship and we allow ourselves to feel the feelings we feel, but we process them, we accept them, and then we see these hardships as opportunity for growth, for healing, for evolving, for expanding our wisdom? I mean, isn't it true that we often evolve the most when we're experiencing resistance? What I was starting to realize to my core in this experience was that we are still allowed to experience the full range of human emotions, good and bad, negative and positive. and we don't need to resist them, but we welcome them instead because we understand deeply that all of these experiences are essential and part of our growth in the human experience. An untamed mind, a mind that has been steering the ship for too long, will often see chaos in the world. An untamed mind naturally sees the negative in all circumstances and situations. It comes from the monkey mind, as some people refer to it as. It is our instinctive survival mind, and that part of our mind is naturally negative because it's protective. It wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep us surviving. It's our survival instincts. And sometimes that part of our mind can go into overdrive. And when that part of our mind is steering the ship, the projector starts to project a different film of reality. And it's usually not a happy one. So, the sooner that we can be present and decide how we want to perceive our lives consciously and not let our minds run the ship, and completely surrender to the experiences we're having, not running away from them, but embracing them, because we know that with this resistance, we're going to come out stronger, better, more resilient, then I believe that we can truly become powerful. I do also want to say that I want to hone in on the fact that I'm not saying that problems don't exist, because if we perceive a problem, then it is a problem. If we feel that something is problematic, then our feelings are real. But I think that as soon as we shift our perspective and we work on shifting our perspective continuously in a way that's more conducive to our growth, a way that's more conducive to positivity, not fake positivity, like real positivity, like really seeing the beauty in things, even in the dark things and the tough things that we go through. I think like that's the goal. And I don't necessarily believe that our default mode should be peace and joy 24/7. That would be a dream, but I don't even know if that is what I would want, and I don't, know if I would encourage that either, because I do think, again, we're meant to experience all the spectrums of emotions and hardships. But I think the bounce back rate, it's like focusing on that bounce back rate of how quickly you can bounce back to your equilibrium, to that state of being that makes you truly happy, because you know who you really are and you know what life really is. Lots of abstract concepts. I hope that made sense. I know it's tricky to grasp. It's tricky to explain. But that was my Bufo Alvarius experience. And if you want to hear more about the letting go technique, which is a technique that I leverage to let go of negative emotions or feelings that don't serve me, so that I can be more present, then be sure to watch this video here.